Many of you are talking about like how she's a black woman, she's an Indian woman. These are the types of things that American voters care about. Yeah, sure. But you know what else they care about? Old people who are chaotic. Old people who they don't really like that much.
She said that this is a decision that the president himself only came to very, very late before the actual announcement went public. She also told the staff that now they need to put their head down, they need to stay focused, and she said they need to protect Vice President Harris. And that is where all eyes are going to be in the coming days. I am told by a senior administration official that President Biden is expected to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu this coming week, and that Vice President Harris is as well. Every move that the vice president makes, her influence on the global stage as well, any campaign stop she makes, that's where the microscope is really going to be under. And another key point as all of this is playing out, since we last spoke, Rachel, there's been a pretty significant development when it comes to the donor class. So a donor I had spoken to earlier said that so many of them were in disagreement about the best way to move forward, that a lot of them did not want to see a coronation of Vice President Harris. They wanted to see some sort of mini primary play out in a very expedited fashion. Well, now since then, you've had powerful senators and Congress people. You've also had the Congressional Black Caucus. You have had major names, including the Clintons, come out and say they are all backing Vice President Harris. Since those developments, I'm told that donors are now quickly coalescing around Vice President Harris. And we're also learning that more donors are asking about how they can pitch in, how they can give more to Vice President Harris. So you are seeing a big shift just in the last several minutes and in the last hour.
Selena, I want to ask you, because President Biden has made it clear that he wanted to have that second debate with former President Donald Trump. It's an ABC News debate that was supposed to take place just weeks before the election, coming at a very critical...
They have to do another debate. Trump will look so weak if he says no. Like, he will look so incredibly weak. Americans want to see the matchup.
Get on the debate stage.
It's going to be another fucking banger of a debate.
Away, potentially, if she is the Democratic nominee, do you believe that she'll want to get on a debate stage with former President Donald Trump?
There are just so many questions at this point, but she would be a strong debater. She's a former prosecutor. This is someone who can really go after and attack people. That is what she is known for doing very well on a public fashion. So she would be a strong contender, I'm told by multiple people, against former President Donald Trump. She will know exactly where to hit him and where his sore spots are. And when it comes to the vice presidential debate, of course, now all eyes are on who would be her vice presidential pick, right? But this is probably going to be full steam ahead. I've still got to work the sources, work the phones to figure out exactly what their plan is on that debate. But Vice President Harris, I'm told, would be very strong.
Thank you, Selena. And I want to bring in now our chief Washington correspondent, John Carl. John, you're getting word and hearing reaction from Donald Trump's running mate, Senator J.D. Vance.
Yeah, it's a relatively short statement, Rachel, and it perfectly encapsulates how Republicans will deal with Kamala Harris on the assumption that she becomes the replacement at the top of the ticket. So this
means auto win for Trump? No, it doesn't. I think a lot of people are it's entirely dependent on who the VP is, but more importantly than that, how the Democrats message going forward. Okay? But no, it is not an automatic dub at all.
Anything you could attack Joe Biden for, you can now attack Kamala Harris for. The statement goes on to accuse Kamala Harris of, quote, covering up Joe Biden's mental capacity, saddling the nation.
The only counter to that, by the way, is to say Joe Biden is still completely mentally fit. Just lie and say he's still completely mentally fit to run the country. But running for re-election while also running for the country or running the country is entirely two different dynamics. And Joe Biden did this because he wanted to be a more capable administrator in his last, couple of months in office, because he loves this country that much, and he wanted to present a fresh new face to the American public that will continue his legacy even better than before.
Democrats from pushing forward with this effort to replace Joe Biden by saying there would be legal challenges if there was an effort to make a change after the primaries. But they are now pivoting to a race that they expect that they will now have against Kamala Harris.
And, John, we know that former President Donald Trump out on the campaign trail, while he has focused much of his attacks on President Joe Biden, he's also attacked Vice President Kamala Harris as well. If she is, in fact, the Democratic nominee, how do we expect the Trump campaign to take on Harris?
Well, they're going to make much of the fact that she was given responsibility for dealing with the problem of undocumented immigrants coming over the border. Now, she wasn't the border czar. That's what Republicans labeled her. She was given the job of dealing with all the migration that was coming up from Central America. But they will portray her as the one that was in charge of the border, which, of course, is issue number one for Republicans.
Yeah, so except this is why I thought, this is exactly the reason why I thought
to make an issue
Joe Biden fucking hitting a right-wing slant on immigration was an unimaginably bad move. I think this is her biggest weakness because she's seen as like the border czar, and it is the weakest issue for the Democrats. And Americans have become increasingly more right-wing. So going forward from this moment on, they need to say like, oh, we are trying to be the adults about the border situation. We want to process migrants more. The Republicans want to put them in concentration camps. Don't even talk about your policies on the border. Talk about how Republicans want to put every person with even any kind of Hispanic origin, any kind of Hispanic background directly into concentration camps. Because the way Republicans always benefit from putting out these bold declarative statements without any emphasis on what that policy would look like in action. They did this with abortion, okay? Oh, Democrats want to do abortion, at 9 months. Democrats want to do abortion at 9 months. Abortion is murder. Abortion is murder. Look where that got them. Objectively unpopular, okay? Objectively unpopular. And is part of the reason why the Democratic ticket still holds a little bit of weight in this country, despite the fact that many Americans experienced negative real wage growth for 2 fucking years under the Biden administration. Okay? So, for that reason, what they have to do is cut against the narrative and explain to Americans what it would look like to deport tens of millions of people that have lived on U.S. soil, that have participated in the American economy in incredibly important ways, and how unimaginably cruel and devastating that reality would be. They should have done this for the past 4 years as Republicans were cutting this kind of narrative. They should have done this for a very long time. They didn't do it. They still have an opportunity to try and reframe the narrative. Now that there is a new slate, now that there's a blank slate to a certain degree, okay? Now that there is a blank slate to a certain degree, this is an opportunity to restructure. I genuinely think that if they try to go, oh no, we went hard on the border. We are the border. I'm the border czar. I went hard on the border. Donald Trump is lying. He didn't want to do the right-wing immigration bill that Joe Biden presented because, he was just like, he wanted to use the border as a talking point. That is weak. That's weak nuts. That is really, really bad. Okay? That's really fucking bad.
Happy with a rerun. They weren't happy with the candidates and the choice that they had. And now they've got they will have a different choice. And if it's Kamala Harris, it is that generational choice you're talking to, not in the number 2 spot, but in the number 1 spot. And Americans, they've been telling pollsters this for a while.
Kamala
they
tweeted
yearn
again
for a new kind of politics. All of a sudden, Donald Trump looks like the man from yesterday. Trumpism and the MAGA movement.
Oh, let's hear what Axelrod has to say. He was urging Biden to drop out months ago.
I mean, it's, Van Jones was talking earlier about what a tough decision this must have been for President Biden. And when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, I mean, to go from a little over 3 weeks ago, showing up in Atlanta to debate Donald Trump, and then to this decision now.
Can you help me get paid from Hutch? He blocked and banned me from his chat when I try to collect. He's been calling both you and I idiots. So the bet is if Biden wins 2024 presidential election, if he does not, I get 500, or if not, I get 500. Assuming he runs against Trump, yeah, he's the incumbent. If he's not president in 2025, I win the bet. I'll accept a $500 bet within those terms. I mean, yeah, he's not going to pay you. I'm going to be honest with you. He is probably too busy, deleting his tweets about how everyone is stupid for not riding with Biden.
Donald Trump, and that may well be Kamala Harris. I think some of her supporters have done her a disservice because they say, well, she's there, she's historic, you can't bypass her, and so on. The real case they should be making is why she'd be the strongest candidate, and there are some really strong arguments to suggest she would be. But she might be stronger if she comes through a process.
Were for people saying Kamala Harris is a black and Indian woman and Americans are sexist and racist and will not accept this. You do not understand. There is one side of this story. You can overcome these weaknesses, I guess, if you can outcompete the other side. Barack Obama was the first black man, was the first black president. How was he able to do that? It was because he fucking absolutely destroyed Hillary Clinton in the primaries, and he was able to put forward a clear and coherent and very bold, very progressive agenda. Okay, change, hope and change. He won by pretty fucking solid numbers. He not only won, but he also had a Senate that was a super majority for the Democrats. He fucked it up, but that's besides the point. Okay, he became this neoliberal demon immediately after he got into office, but that's not what we're talking about right now. His middle name was fucking Hussein, and we were a lot closer. We were a lot closer to the worst kinds of Islamophobia you've ever seen. A motherfucker whose name is Barack Hussein Obama, okay? Barack Hussein Obama, who Hillary Clinton's camp literally called a Muslim, okay, was able to become president. Problem is Kamala Harris charismatic enough? Is Kamala Harris going to be able to put forward a clear and coherent message that Americans respond to positively? Will she be able to overcome some of the weaknesses of being associated with the Biden regime? These are real problems here because she's not an unknown person to a certain degree. She is a known entity. She was the vice president. Lucky for her, they only talked about how silly of a goose she is. She was like, oh yeah, she's so silly. She laughs a lot. She's stupid. That's what they presented her as. So we'll see. Senator John Fetterman, people pushed out an honorable man, loving father, and great president before an absolute sleazeball like Menendez. Congratulations. Yeah, no, he's just worried that people whose brains don't work too good are getting pushed out. That's what it is. He's got his own personal motivation, okay? He's like, oh, you don't like it when someone is stupid? Like, I thought Americans wanted car crash victims in positions of power. I don't understand. Thanks, John Fetterman.
Week, but in the rest of the country, not so much. He's a vulnerable candidate and can be beaten, and Democrats are going to begin to focus on that. There's a lot of sadness about the president, a lot of love and affection for him, but I think people are also steeled to the task at hand.
Yeah, I spoke to Trump moments after Biden put out this statement, and he called him the worst president in U.S. history, and then he said that he does believe Harris would be easier to beat. Obviously, we don't know if that's who he'll be facing in this election, but this is not just uncertainty for Democrats, it's uncertainty for the Trump campaign as well. David Axelrod, stand by because I want to get back to you, but we also have Abby Phillip here joining, CNN anchor and CNN's senior political correspondent. And Abby, I mean, this is just such a seismic moment in this campaign. I wonder what you're hearing from Democratic sources, from donors about what this new landscape looks like now.
Yeah, Caitlin, I've been talking to a number of people today and definitely over the last several days. And the big thing right now is how quickly can Vice President Harris consolidate this field? And I spoke with a top fundraiser for the Biden-Harris campaign who's in touch with dozens of donors who said, right now, this is hers to win or to lose. And frankly, she has 24 to 48 hours to do so. But this person did not believe that there was any sort of truly organized effort to push someone else other than the vice president.
I love when the Republicans are like, oh, dude, Harris is such an easy lock. Like, it's going to be so easy to defeat her. Meanwhile, they're simultaneously trying to get all of their lawyers to sue in every state to keep Joe Biden on the ticket. Harris is so easy to beat. which is why we're certainly not fucking panicking right now on the Republican side.
Also said that the donors are prepared to back her, and that's going to be critically important. This is being viewed by many people in the Democratic Party as the path of least resistance. She has the clearest path to inheriting the campaign infrastructure, the clearest path to inheriting the money that has been raised by the Biden-Harris campaign up until this point. And the other thing, talking to another source who's very close to the vice president, there is a lot of concern about the really compressed timeline right now to get all of these ducks in a row. There are so many decisions that need to be made, so many parts of this that are completely unknown, and even the people who are the most supportive of her, who want this to eventually end up with the vice president as the top of the ticket, they are worried, is how this person put it to me. So look, the next day or two are going to be extremely critical. One of the other factors in all of this is going to be which candidate is best positioned to actually get the delegates, because that's really where this ends up at this point.
Donald Trump's political team has been gearing up to campaign against Vice President Kamala Harris for weeks, a goal they moved closer to on Sunday after President Joe Biden announced his withdrawal from the race. "We are quite pleased that he endorsed Kamala," said Richard Grenell, former U.S. ambassador to Germany and Trump's acting director of national intelligence. "As we have seen in California, she has not undergone thorough vetting. Kamala Harris is a product of the current political system. She holds very progressive views, is unvetted, and lacks tested experience," according to Richard. While Harris is not guaranteed to become the Democratic nominee to replace Biden, his endorsement and that of other key Democrats shortly after his withdrawal have improved her frontrunner status.
And many people close to the vice president have stressed to me there are a lot of structural and political reasons why she is by far in the best position. When we talk about the importance of black voters and black delegates are to this Democratic Party, that's not just a talking point. It's a real practicality about where the powerhouses are within the Democratic National Committee, and those are the people in the coming days who are going to decide how this goes and who this goes to. And I imagine shortly after that, the discussion about who would be her running mate is going to accelerate as well. I'm already hearing, as I'm sure you are as well, a lot of whispers about that as well, Caitlin.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the amount of the ways that Democrats' phones are blowing up today, it cannot be overstated. I mean, everyone is talking about this and asking that very question. One, who's the nominee going to be? And two, if it is Harris, what does that ticket look like? Abby Phillip, we'll continue to report on this, continue to have those conversations. Let us know what you're hearing. We also have Scott Jennings, a CNN senior political commentator, here with us. Scott, I mean, this is just as much uncertainty for Republicans as it is for Democrats. You heard what former President Trump said to me moments after Biden announced this. We're already seeing a well-funded super PAC of his attacking Harris, something they had kind of been preparing in case this very scenario happened. What does this moment mean for Republicans?
Yeah, it's shocking. I mean, if I had known the second coming of the Lord Almighty was going to happen on the East Coast this weekend, I wouldn't have gone to San Diego. I'd have been there with you. But here we are, 3 weeks after the cheap fakes, by the way, episode, which the most embarrassing gaslighting that ever happened. I mean, Republicans are going to paint Kamala Harris as
mad.
Joe Biden.
She's mad.
Been number 2 in the administration that has a mid-30s approval rating, that's overseeing this inflation crisis. She was the border czar.
He's so
for the
mad
immigration
today.
crisis that everybody is mad
Fuck
about.
you,
And
Scott.
on top of that, she's been one of the principal ringleaders of the cover-up of Joe Biden's actual conditions. So I hear I've been listening for the last couple of hours, a lot of crowing and pumping up.
Scott is the Republican on the CNN lineup.
Not a great politician.
For those of you who
She ran
don't
for
know,
president once, and it was a complete
mad.
disaster. And right now, it looks like she, Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, and a bunch of rich people have just pushed Joe Biden out of this race, and in the process, disenfranchised millions of Democrat voters.
Yeah, yeah, dude. Everyone who voted for Joe Biden in the primaries is like, yeah, I'm not voting for Kamala Harris. Get the fuck out of here, dude.
Is it interesting to you that we haven't seen a picture of Joe Biden today? We don't have a picture of him signing the letter. I mean, this is a huge decision. Also, the letter doesn't say why exactly. Why is he stepping down? He's the current. We've been talking about this for weeks. He's the current president.
So mad, dude.
He's
come on. Look, I don't know what happens tomorrow, but today I'm going to sit I'm going to kick back and I'm going to enjoy the Republicans in a state of absolute panic.
Unanswered by this letter and the mystery surrounding him today.
Yeah, well, he does have COVID, so I think that's probably why we're not seeing him. You know, I just talked to Chris Coons, his co-chair, who spoke to him after this announcement.
We didn't even see Joe Biden. And also, what if maybe it wasn't him who signed it?
From people like House Speaker Mike Johnson. But I do wonder, Scott, what does this mean if Harris is the nominee? I mean, let's game this out for a second. What does that mean for the Trump campaign? Because they have been preparing to run against President Biden.
Why would he panic? Isn't this the best news for them?
After that debate in Atlanta.
No.
But this is, you know,
guys, Biden is so fucking old. Please. He was literally, what chances he has of winning right now are already marginal. They were going to only get worse from this point on. How do you not see this? Like, no, this was not good. This was a depressive voter turnout re-election, okay? This was a rerun. The momentum was only in the Trump direction. I'm telling you, dude. That's the reason why Republicans are so fucking mad right now and trying everything that they can to just be like, yo, dude, it's so fucked up. It's so fucked up how they did my boy Joe Biden. Like, oh my God, all the primary voters voted for him. It's like, no, they voted for the Democrat, okay? They voted for whoever the fuck is at the top of the ticket. You have an unprecedented level of interest in a race that was unimaginably boring and uninteresting for many people who were not interested in voting at all. This is the opportunity for the Democratic Party to put forward some kind of competent leadership and actually use this blank slate in some respects to their advantage. Okay? Now, it's actually no longer a fucking old person against an older person. These are the types of things that, like, Americans in the margins care about. Many of you are talking about, like, how she's a black woman, she's an Indian woman. These are the types of things that American voters care about. Yeah, sure. But you know what else they care about? Old people who are chaotic. Old people who they don't really like that much. Old people who have also taken away 50% of the country's fucking, reproductive rights, reproductive freedoms. Watch the Dem Party shit the bed and put a fucking conservative in the front seat. Yeah, I don't think that that's a good idea. I hope they don't do that. That's why the people that I've been mentioning are not actually conservative. Shapiro would be more conservative, in my opinion, than even like a Bashar or even Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly's pretty middle of the road as well. And the thing is, I don't really trust the Democrats. As I've said time and time again, they do have the worst fucking instincts, but this is a moment where they actually moved in a direction, albeit a difficult one, but they moved in the correct direction. So if they keep up this momentum, and they put forward a decent plan of attack, okay, and don't lean to like the more conservative losing battles like the border, and instead lean into winning battles like abortion, okay, like the economy rebounding, things of that nature, then it's a pretty solid opportunity to maintain all of those voters who were saying that they were going to vote for Joe Biden and pick up more in demographics that you need to pick up to win key states. Okay? What is this? Some points to back you up. GOP strategist Terry Sullivan tells CBS News that his fellow GOP operatives are less than enthusiastic. They're the dog that caught the car, says Scott McFarlane. Kyle Griffin, Trump desperately wanted President Biden to stay in the race, according to multiple reports. This is true. Okay? They did. They really wanted Biden. And the reason why they really wanted Biden is because they thought Biden is the candidate to beat. And there was a likelihood that Biden was the candidate to beat. But like I said, Democrats can still fuck up the bag here, but they have a wonderful opportunity. This is also a pretty solid narrative here as well. Harris is such a good candidate because she can credibly claim the accomplishments of the administration without being held responsible for any of Biden's specific mistakes. She literally exists in the context of what came before, but is also unburdened by what has been. That is true. She can literally dismantle the genocide Joe narrative. Not to say that she will, because that requires bravery. I don't know if she's going to be courageous enough, but she has separated herself early on. She separated herself a couple months prior from Biden on this issue. Okay? I'm telling you, This also creates an opportunity to genuinely galvanize the youth vote, to genuinely get the youth vote back into action, actually coping. Kamala is not beating him. No shot, Lamau, actually coping. Yeah, get ready for a lot of people basically saying that, like, she's a woman, Americans are too misogynistic, which while they simultaneously are just being that person. I think Kamala Harris is not a great candidate, but she is the one that the Democratic Party put forward. I'm just analyzing this with what I've seen so far. In a world where Joe Biden is trailing behind Donald Trump closely, despite the fact that he's a cadaver, I see a world where there's only more votes to gain in this process. The donations pouring in are coming from big ticket donors, by the way. But that is only good because it's going to lead to a lot of money being dumped in to reframing the narrative and getting people to pay attention and getting people interested in the form of ad spends. Obviously, hundreds of millions of dollars thus far was not getting that done for Joe. Okay? So there is a little bit of uncertainty there. We don't know if the hundreds of millions of dollars behind Kamala Harris is actually going to get people to be interested in Kamala Harris, is going to get people to want to vote for Kamala Harris. I suspect that it will do far better for Kamala Harris than Joe Biden. Okay? I think regular voters will get excited too. Biden just inspired no enthusiasm. Yes. How charismatic is she? Not great. She is not great, I will say. But while she's not great, this man was a cadaver, and the voters were still like, yeah, I think whoever is on the top of that ticket, I'm voting for. 67% of Democratic Party voters that said that they were voting for Biden were voting against Trump. Their main motivation was voting against Trump. You need to understand that. That is important. This is still a Trump race, okay? That's not a good race that the Republicans want to have, okay? Trump is a very unpopular person. You need to understand. This motherfucker almost got killed, and people were like celebrating. And by people, I mean not myself. I would never do such a thing, okay? But others were. I was celebrating for other reasons. You know, maybe I was celebrating because he survived. I was excited. But like everyone was celebrating. Half of the country was celebrating. Well, not half, but, you know, around 30% of the country was excited that he survived and he's like the Messiah, the second coming of Jesus Christ. The rest of the country was like, the rest of the voters at least were like, yeah, no, this is kind of sad.
The race, and Lord Almighty's not coming down.
But it wasn't enough to quell concerns.
Lord
the
Almighty
calls
did come
from
down. He got
Democrats for
COVID.
him to step aside, growing to a steady stream.
I salute President Biden. I just feel that it's time for him to step aside if we were to be able to protect what he allowed us to gain in 2020, which was a victory for democracy. But he delivered.
Yeah. He did the right thing. He did it. He got us across the finish line.
She
Come
likes
on.
a lot, knows very well. And as we saw just a little while ago, he has already come out to endorse her publicly. That happened very quickly, and I know their camps speak to each other quite often. The other names will also be familiar. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear has been mentioned a lot, North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. There are clearly others, but those four names are the names I keep hearing about.
Yeah, those names have been out there for a while. Casey,
you know, I was going to say those are the names that are in all of the conversations that I'm having right now. And we saw the Pennsylvania governor, Josh Shapiro, come out and say something very nice about Biden. From what I can tell, has yet to endorse Kamala Harris. Maybe that email has crossed, so forgive me if I'm a little bit slow on this. But I do think that's an interesting contrast in terms of when you compare it to how Mark Kelly is handling it. And obviously, they have to think a lot. And I had a lot of conversations with the RNC about this, actually, about how this race is going to change with her at the top of the ticket, what the strengths and weaknesses of a Harris ticket are. They're different from the strengths and weaknesses with Biden at the top of the ticket, and they really have to think through that and consider that as they're thinking about picking their number two.
One of the advantages, a major advantage she had as becoming the heir apparent to the president after he drops out, was that it's the Biden-Harris campaign that raised tens of millions of dollars. There's a ton of money in that campaign, and since it's the Biden-Harris campaign, she can continue to use that money as the presidential nominee.
That's right. And if they're worried about logistics, it is a heck of a lot, and Karen, I'm sure you can weigh in on this, logistically easier to have Kamala Harris be the top of the ticket here. The other thing that you, I think, have to think through, and I was having a conversation with a very smart operative that's been in Kamala Harris's circle in the past, has been inside the Biden administration. They were arguing, as someone who has advised a lot of candidates, right? If you are Josh Shapiro, if you are Andy Beshear, if you are someone that has national ambitions, what is the right move for you right now? Putting yourself out there, angering an enormous segment of the party in black voters by challenging Kamala Harris, and also just potentially going on to lose either that fight or the election, one, both. Instead, you could be her number two, be seen as someone who is stepping up for the party. And if Democrats lose in November, you've only been on the ticket for 80 days. Is it really your fault? So I think that there's some of that going on behind the scenes, too.
Audie, I want to get your thoughts on how the African...
of this entire thing? Yeah. I would say, I mean, think about it. I think it was May 30th that we were all sitting here talking about how the race would change sentence caps because of Trump's conviction, and it's just been a roller coaster.
Okay, Wolf, calm down, bro. He's like, I want to hear your thoughts on the African American vote.
One of the concerns they have is, will it look like big donors just big-footed the voters in the Democratic primary process and got the result that they wanted? So I think that's why you hear...
Bro, this only fucking works as a narrative if like 70% of the Democrats that said they were voting for Biden weren't saying they want Biden to drop out. Like, I'm sorry. If this was like a Hillary Clinton style situation and the donors were actually at odds with the rest of the fucking voters, with the rest of the party, then yeah, that makes sense. Right now, on the other hand, the donors were completely in line with what the broad majority wanted. Oh, dude, by the way, this is awesome. If Kamala Harris does this, she actually wins, okay?
So I don't buy that argument that impeachment does not make sense, Senate will acquit. I don't buy that argument. There needs to be accountability. I mean, what are you going to do in the next 1 year to diminish the mentally retarded action of this guy?
He called him mentally R-worded Trump, and Kamala Harris's response was...
Well said. Well said. I plan to win this election, I'll tell you.
Bro, that's so funny that this is the attack ad from the RNC Research Lab. This is what you cooked up. If she keeps that momentum, is the RNC Research trying... If she keeps that momentum, that's free promo, okay? Because, like, obviously, those who would care about ableism are not going to care about ableism enough to be like, I'm not voting for fucking whoever the Democrat is over Donald Trump. And all you're doing is, like, showing at least, like, people who are on the RNC research side, maybe in the margins, that, like, you know, she's a little bit more lighthearted than the annoying, woke, scoldy ass Democrats.
Leading Democrats are voicing their support for Vice President Kamala Harris as their party seeks a nominee to replace President Biden in the 2024 race. Following his decision to withdraw, Biden endorsed Harris after announcing his decision to drop out, but he cannot personally appoint a Democratic nominee to fill his spot in the presidential race. The nominee will be chosen through a vote by the delegates to the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, set to happen virtually early next month. The convention begins on August 19th. My very first decision as the party nominee in 2020 was to pick Kamala Harris as my vice president, Biden said in a social media post. And it's been the best decision I have made. Today, I want to offer my full support and endorsement for Kamala to be the nominee of our party this year, Democrats. It's time to come together and beat Trump. Let's do this. Former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton were among the politicians to endorse Harris shortly after Mr. Biden's announcement. The Clintons wrote, We join millions of Americans in thanking President Biden for all he has accomplished, standing up for America time and again, with his North Star always being what's best for the country. We are honored to join the President in endorsing Vice President Harris and will do whatever we can to support her. They wrote, "We have lived through many ups and downs, but nothing has made us more worried for our country than the threat posed by a second Trump term. He has promised to be a dictator on day one, and the recent ruling by his servile Supreme Court will only embolden him to further shred the Constitution." Their statement continued, "Now is the time to support Kamala Harris and fight with everything we have got to elect her. America's future depends on it." If you found this video informative, then make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. And thanks for watching.